All right, this is our presentation on poison gas. This is by me, JP, Joe, and Sean. Okay, this is the evolution and like types of poison gas. Poison gas was first invented and introduced by Fritz Haber in 1915. German Germany at in the beginning of the First World War first used chlorine gas. They were the first major country to introduce chemical gas in warfare. Phosgen was also used later on and more deadly than chlorine, and this caused 85% of the chemical casualties. Yeah, and in 1917, mustard gas was used for the first time by Germany, and overall, mustard gas has caused the highest amount of casualties of any chemical weapon.
Um, so I said before, it was first used in April of 1915 by the Germans on the British during the Battle of Ypres. So the uses of the gas, they were either used as smoke bombs and later in the war, they turned them into shells for long range use. Um, and I said before, the main gases that were used were chlorine, mustard gas, um, phosgene, and bromine. And the Germans primarily used these gases for warfare.
So now we're going to go into to discuss the impact that chemical weapons had upon World War One. Like for the most part, it was a factor in making the war more atrocious, meaning it was more about wearing down your enemy until they couldn't fight anymore. And the purpose and cruelty of chemical weapons is that they are solely meant to kill and injure your opponent until they can no longer fight. They're very unforgiving. Therefore, it strengthened this idea on both sides that if they can prolong the conflict long enough, they would eventually win. Also, the development of chemical weapons created an arms race similar to the British-German dreadnought competition before the war. Both sides wanted to improve their poisonous gases and be more effective than the other side. In particular, Russia created a whole new chemical industry due to effective German gas attacks in 1915 and 16. The most obvious effect of chemical weapons was the death and suffering they caused. After the war, there had been 1.2 million casualties from gas attacks, 90,000 of which were deaths. Notably, Russia suffered many more deaths than any other country, comprising almost 60% of the deaths. Chemical attacks also had a significant impact upon civilians. An estimated 100 to 260,000 civilians suffered casualties from chemical attacks. They often had no warning and little ability to protect themselves, sometimes using a water or urine-soaked rag to protect their breathing. Although chemical weapons might sound like a new effective tactic, it was ultimately not a major breakthrough. Less than 1% of deaths in World War I were from chemical attacks, though they did result in a more significant amount of non-fatal casualties.
Okay, so we have the overall significance of the gas. So firstly, it strengthened the idea of total war as it included a lot of different countries. Next, we have that it was another way to blame Germany, as even though Germany started it, they didn't use it that much, but the other countries, mainly the Allies, wanted to blame Germany for starting the war, so this was a great way to pinpoint them. It was not used frequently, as mentioned previously. It was first used in 1915 by Germany. It started developing new chemical weapons, starting with France. So the Allies began developing mass and other types of anti-gas weaponry, and this helped not make Germany as powerful because they were the only ones with the gas at the time. And then mustard gas was later created on by Germany. The poison gas was not really used much in war once everybody got anti-gas weaponry, but later on in the war, the United States used chemical gas in 1917, and they used about 100,000 tons of it. Lastly, it created debates on the ethics behind the usage. A lot of people, a lot of foreign leaders did not know if they should be using it because of the after effects that it caused to the people, such as blistering their skin, their lungs, and just making their body not breathe well. So overall, while poison gas was not used frequently in World War One.
Just as a side note, after all of the Allied countries saw the devastating potential of chemical warfare in World War I. It was actually banned in the Geneva Protocol in 1925, and we did not see many more uses of chemical weapons throughout history, even to the modern day, though they do still exist.